Welcome to Raiders of the Lost Podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
We are your hosts, James
And Anthony.
This episode will be on The Terminal List, Season 1.
Hello, movie friends. Welcome back to the show. We're very happy and excited to be here discussing one of our favorite shows so far this year, Amazon Prime's The Terminal List.
This came heavily recommended to me by you, and it was heavily recommended by a bunch of fans of ours to finally get on this show. And it's one of the best series that Amazon Prime has produced, and it was excellent. I enjoyed the hell out of it. It stars Chris Pratt, who also produced and secured the rights to The Terminal List because it was created by Jack Carr, who wrote the book The Terminal List. James Reese won. The series follows Lieutenant Commander James Reese, played by Chris Pratt, after his platoon of Navy SEALs are ambushed while on a covert mission. Reese returns home to his family with conflicting memories of the event and questions about his culpability. As new evidence comes to light, Reese discovers dark forces working against him, endangering not only his life but the lives of those he loves.
That's a great narration.
Thanks, pal.
And this is Chris Pratt's best performance, I think. He gives it his all. He's going to emotional places and very interesting places for a performer that you haven't seen him do before. And it's great to see him avoid the comedy. It is very refreshing. He has his moments, and he does have that effortless charm still. But I love the aspect of him just taking this role seriously, avoiding the cliches and what we expect from him. And the testament to, you know, the brave men and women who defend our country, this show does a great job of portraying them, what their lives are like, how difficult it can be, the camaraderie that soldiers have with one another, and combine that with a terrific, intriguing mystery. I got like notes of like the Jason Bourne, like a little bit of Mission Impossible, like great war films like Zero Dark 30. A lot of that meshed together. I just loved it, every note of this series. From episode 2, I was like, oh my god, the action is excellent. The kills are amazing. There's a lot of stuff you haven't seen before in this show that is just shocking. And I love the show. I think it was really fantastic, and there's a reason why it's currently one of the Amazon Prime's best performing TV shows of all time.
Pretty much. It's up there, so we'll get to that in a little bit. The show also stars Constance Wu, Taylor Kitsch, Riley Keough, Arlo Mentz, G.N. Triplehorn, Jared Shaw, J.D. Pardo. And for me, all those things I agree with. And it also felt like The Punisher in a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's a great revenge film. The Punisher is also a Navy SEAL, just like James Reese is. But this is more of domestic espionage, domestic governmental corruption involved as well. And it was showrun by Dave DiGilio, who's a producer, and he also wrote the first 2 episodes. And the director of episode 1 and executive producer and producer on the show is also the great Antoine Fuqua, who's one of Hollywood's most underrated directors right now. He directed the pilot, and he was actually trying to secure the rights at the same time as Chris Pratt, and they were both in a bidding war with someone who they didn't know who it was. And then according to Antoine Fuqua, a friend who's a Navy SEAL, his name is Matt, he told me about the book before it came out. I started to obviously go down the road of trying to secure the rights, and some other guy was going after it, and he was a big star, and I was like, who the hell is that? Who could that be? And then my phone rang, and it was Chris Pratt, and he's like, hey, The Terminal List, I hear you're trying to get it. I was going to come to you after I got it, so let me get it, and then we'll do it together. So they became producing partners and securing the rights together, and Pratt, being a man of his word, secured the rights, went straight to Fuqua to adapt the book into the series that it became with showrunner David DiGilio, and they describe it as a tradescraft meets paranoia. Much more intriguing, Antoine Fuqua meets Alfred Hitchcock.
Love it. And the pair of them, they actually, now they're pals now, but they both have friends within the Navy SEAL community, which is why they both wanted to do the book so badly, which is why they had a deep connection to the story, and probably how Chris Pratt learned that Fuqua was also the other bidder instead of it being anonymous. So I like how you can clearly see the passion they have for that world and for these people and for these characters. They really infuse a lot of authenticity. Everything feels very true to life. I'm not a soldier or a Navy SEAL, but I feel like they did a great job capturing that culture in the film. You see all sorts of things, not just from special operations, but Little things like he goes to the base a couple of times, and you can see Navy SEALs training in the background and seeing the flashbacks of his own training, what these people go through to become these ultimate soldiers. It's really impressive the amount of care that was put into the series, and also the tactical scenes, the action scenes. They seem really terrific, really well done, very believable, and also just surprising at times. There are some really shocking moments of the show.
There's a ton of authenticity to the show because they had Navy SEALs on set. So former Navy SEAL and current military consultant Ray Mendoza served as a technical advisor on the show, while Pratt's friend Jared Shaw, another former Navy SEAL, and the woman whom the actor shadowed while preparing for the film Zero Dark 30, where he played a Navy SEAL as well in that film from Catherine Bigelow, was a co-producer on the show and played Reese's friend and platoon member Ernest Boozer Vickers. Also, former Army Ranger Max Adams was a member of the writing staff. So these guys help bring so much authenticity and realism to the show. But you can just tell from the technical aspects of Chris Pratt's character, James Reese, and all the other Navy SEALs and military personnel, their maneuvers, their technicians,
the way they carry
their
a weapon.
Tactics. It's just so authentic and more realistic than you see in most TV shows and movies.
Yeah, like just the way Chris Pratt, for example, the hospital attack, or moving through hallways in his home, the way he handles just a pistol, the way he carries it, it's so accurate to how someone like a Navy SEAL, a highly trained person, would carry it. It's not just like movie actor just like holding it out dramatically. Like he's keeping it close to his body at the ready for any moment where he can quickly lift it up. And that's how soldiers like that, they really maneuver around these areas, especially tight spots like that. And also, the cast is really terrific. Constance Wu was excellent as basically the main supporting actor of the series. She plays a journalist he gets involved into this story of trying to uncover what's really going on. She does a fabulous job and has a lot of great scenes. And then also, we have what's his name? I'm sorry, the Australian actor
Taylor Kish.
The Australian actor who plays Boomerang in Suicide Squad.
Boomerang in Suicide Squad. Oh, Jai Courtney.
Jai Courtney did a terrific job.
Yeah.
I haven't seen him in a lot of things since Suicide Squad, but he did an excellent job as an antagonist. Also, James Gunn's brother, Sean Gunn, has a very sizable role in this show, and he did excellent. He's an antagonist as well. I did not know he had those acting chops. He really surprised me with a bunch of his scenes. He was very impressive as his character. And then Taylor Kish did a wonderful job as James's old friend, old buddy, old wartime pal, who has a very important role in this series. I think the ensemble was just fantastic.
And plus, anyone who's a fan of Sons of Anarchy and the Mayans, the actor J.D. Pardo has a huge role in the
That's
Terminal
where I
List as
recognize
well.
him from.
So he plays a special detective agent for Los Angeles County, who's also investigating. So this story, we'll get into like spoiler territory in a little bit, but I want to talk more about the response to this show. So audiences love this show. On Rotten Tomatoes, it is at 94% fresh. IMDb, it's at an 8.0 with 62,000 reviews.
Whoa.
However, the Terminal List has been consistently and overwhelmingly slammed by critics. It is at a 39% Rotten score from critics on Rotten Tomatoes. And no one really knows why. You can just assume that they have that
animosity,
biased opinion towards military shows and movies and TV. And obviously Chris Pratt, not everyone loves the guy, but it's always interesting to see what projects a lot of these movie critics and reviewers just analyze with a microscope versus the ones that they review with a blindfold on.
It's interesting because that's such a stark divide. That's 60 points of a divide between critics and fans. And actually, that was the critic reviews is what kept me hesitant about watching the show, because I wasn't totally sold on the trailer, and then the critics were bashing it, and I was like, man, this show. I mean, Chris Pratt. I mean,
they bash everything Chris Pratt does.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's so much animosity towards him, and I was like, I got a few recommendations, and I was like, you know what? I love Chris Pratt. I love the Tomorrow War. I love a lot of his work. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it a shot. And I watched the first episode. I was like, this show is awesome. What is going on with these critics? And by episode 2, I was just completely hooked. A couple big things happened in that episode. You know, we'll get to it. But I was just like, this is fantastic. I haven't seen a show like this. It really feels like a great wartime espionage Tom Clancy thriller, but on the small screen. I thought it was just fantastic. And then once I was done with that, I was like, screw the critics. I'm not listening to anything they say. And I've gotten to the point where I trust IMDb ratings.
100%.
And the rating for this, when I started watching it, was like an 8.5. I was like, okay, this has to be good. And it had like 20,000 ratings. So I was like, that was really the biggest selling factor for me.
And you'd be shocked that this is was the most streamed show for Amazon this year. You would think it was The Boys. They were in season 3, running at the same time as when The Terminalist premiered. So The Boys was already on for about 4 weeks in June, and then when The Terminalist came out, The Terminalist within 2 weeks became the #1 show on Amazon Prime. It gathered up the #3 spot on the Nielsen chart within a couple weeks as well, which is
that's for all
the entirety of streaming shows and TV, with 1.1 billion views across its 8 episodes. And so then it was watched for 1.6 million minutes during the July 4th, 10th viewing window in its first full week of availability when it premiered on July 1st. So this was streaming more popular than The Boys, while The Boys was in season 3 mid-season, which is absurd because The Boys gets so much marketing and press and all over Instagram and social media attention, whereas The Terminalist hardly saw marketing for it. Hardly saw marketing for it. Just a couple Instagram posts I saw, and when you went on Amazon for like the first week, it was the headline banner, but it hardly had any marketing, and it became still the #1 show on Amazon Prime.
That's impressive because even in LA, there are Boys billboards when the show comes out.
Everywhere.
They're all over the place. They really market it, especially in this city. And I haven't seen anything for The Terminalist, and I haven't seen anything on social media for it really at all. So I think it's a testament to word of mouth. Like, for example, people recommending it to me. Me recommending it to you. And you know that if I'm like crazy about something, it's worth checking out. So
I'm so glad you told me about it.
and I'm so glad I watched it because I love these kinds of shows. Sometimes it's like I like a show that just has a gritty tone to it. It's brutal. The mystery is really fantastic, but I love the performance by Chris Pratt and the approach because it actually has a really great style to it. Where Chris Pratt's character James Reese is experiencing delusions, and he's having.
We'll start heading into spoiler territory.
We'll go into spoiler territory. He's experiencing extremely intense delusions and hallucinations, and he's having trouble figuring out what's reality and what's not real, and he's beginning to not trust his mind, especially in the first 2 episodes where he doesn't even... In the audience, you're along with him. You're like, is this all in his head? Is this really not really a conspiracy? Is he making stuff up? Is he really the person who killed his parents, his wife and child, and like he's just like losing his mind? And so they did a terrific job of blending together memories with the present. Really fantastic, stylized filmmaking you wouldn't really see in any kind of like military wartime kind of project. I thought it was really fantastic, so well done. And then when you learn that it is all a conspiracy, he is a victim, then I was like so on board. I was like, kill every one of them, take them out. It's great.
Well, let's set all that up. So in the show, in the first episode, we learned that him and his SEAL team were ambushed basically by the targets that they were going after, and his entire platoon and his whole team was killed except for him. And he's the one who made it back. He was also the leader of the SEAL team, and he also had suffered a head injury. And like Anthony said, he doesn't know what's reality anymore. The audience doesn't know what's reality as he's trying to acclimate back to his real life, just dealing with the trauma of losing everyone under his command, as well as experiencing intense migraines, delusions, hallucinations like Anthony brought up, and mixing memories with the past and changing his memories. He's being told that, it's a great interpretation and an example of showing the brain injuries that people can suffer, whether it's in combat or in sports or anything, as well as PTSD coming back from home from war, the effect it has on you and your family around you. So they do a terrific job authentically showing family life and how that happens. Then obviously there's conspiracy that we fully don't believe, and his wife and daughter get killed, and everyone's the signs are pointing to him, this combat vet, this Navy SEAL who has suffered traumatic injuries and situations. Of course he would lose his mind and go crazy and kill his family. And then when you, like Eddie said, when you find out that he's right all along and there really is a conspiracy, which you don't find out till, was it episode 2?
At the end of episode 2.
At the end of episode 2 when he's about to take out that investigator.
Yeah, and it's so great because what happens is by the end of that episode 2, you're still like, I don't know if this is real or not. And then he and Constance Wu's character, they have a meeting, and she's like, I don't know if this guy sounds crazy. And then he's like, oh, I see someone. Hey, we got to get out of here. We got to go out the back. She's like, you saw someone wearing sunglasses? Like, come on. And then even you, a character, the audience member, we just saw like a flash of someone. We are like, oh, that might have been a hallucination. So then he takes her and he's like, we got to get out of here. So they go out the back in the alley. And then this
is when they meet up to have a conversation.
Okay. About the evidence he has and the conspiracy he wants to tell her about. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes out and just starts unloading on them. And then James takes that guy out. Then you're like, he's like, still think I'm crazy now. I was like, yes, it's all real. He's not losing his mind. And that confirmed everything. And then from that moment on, that's when the show, I think, became really sensational. It was excellent.
The relationship between them, it's rocky at first because Constance Wu's character, the journalist, is known for trying to bring truth in light to the effect of service on armed force members and the corruption involved with the government and tactics. And she's using James Reese and his medical history and the trauma and events that happened with his platoon to try to bring light to the events that happened to these armed force members overseas. And he's using her to try to get evidence on the conspiracy to try to basically begin creating his hit list. So they're working together for opposite reasons at first, different reasons, but then they eventually kind of start working together by the end of the series where they're going after the same target at the end of the show. And it's a great relationship because they split up, they go separately, they kind of become not enemies to an extent, but they kind of betray each other going in their different directions, but they are reunited by the end with the same goal.
And the conspiracy ends up becoming the government was experimenting on the Navy SEALs, this specific team, and the Secretary of State signed off on it and oversaw that. And so that's all trying to be covered up, and that ends up being what the conspiracy is. So the ultimate antagonist of the show is actually Secretary of State.
The Secretary of State is as well as the Navy SEALs commanders because they're using this experimental drug on these Navy SEALs,
the Admiral,
which ended up creating brain tumors. And so James Reese, not only has he lost his entire family, he's on the run from every government body in the nation trying to hunt him down because he's taking out everyone who is involved with this drug and with the stocks after he gets information of who was making money off the medication. Like Jai Courtney's character was the pioneer of it all, making billions of dollars off of it. But he's on the run. He's going through all the trauma of losing his SEAL team, losing his family, no one believing him. And he's also suffering from a brain tumor. He's losing his mind a little bit. He's going a little crazy, but he's doing everything he can to maintain his sanity, to stay focused on getting vengeance for his family.
And he only has, like, the doctor tells him, like, maybe 10 months left to live. If he doesn't get treatment, he's certainly going to die. And what I feel like we don't really see characters like this anymore. Just the classic tough guy and the classic just, like, he's just a tool. And there's really no, like, he doesn't need to be a nice guy. He doesn't need to have moments where he's, like, shows his other colors, because we see that in the memories in with his relationship with his wife and daughter. But like there's multiple times where like he's told by even his buddy, by Ben, like, we don't have to do this and you don't have to actually kill this guy when they go to Mexico. But James, time after time, he's just like that old school, just complete badass where he's like, no, I have to kill the guy. He needs to know that it's me who came here to do it. And he's like, I have to take down everyone who did this, who had a hand in this conspiracy. And he makes this list that's basically like the Punisher list, kind of like Kill Bill, Beatrix Kiddo's list of people she has to take out for revenge. And you know, we don't really see characters like that anymore. And sometimes you can't empathize with them. Sometimes he is pretty kind of villainous at times, and he's doing terrible things to people. But in a lot of ways, we've lost that kind of archetype. And I was very satisfied to see it back in a major way with him.
There's clearly a thirst for it with audiences out there. And Taylor Kitsch is also awesome in this film. He's obviously famous from Friday Night Lights, the series, and then he almost became a superstar with John Carter on Mars, which could have been a great franchise, but they ended up not pulling that film off. But he plays James Reese's best friend and former Navy SEAL Ben, who basically is his ride or die, I'll do anything with you, until the end of the finale, where we find out that he was also involved with everything, with the drug scheme, with making profits off the situation.
I did not see that coming.
Me
That was
neither.
a great twist.
When he showed up at the boat,
Yeah.
and then when we were at the city, we're like, oh, the place in Mexico, or I mean Peru, I believe. Now, there are some great action sequences and moments in this series. They really had my jaw on the floor a few times. I have a list of my favorite moments from the film. So I think the tomahawk disembowelment was one of the craziest scenes I've ever seen in my entire life, where he finds the actual assassin that was hired to kill his family down in Mexico with the help of his family friends down there. And the way he kills the guy is he uses his tomahawk to disembowel him and sticks his intestines to a pillar and then makes him walk to his death, which I've never seen anything like that before in a movie.
I heard you watching it, and you were like, "Oh my god!"
I was screaming at the top of my lungs.
It was insane.
Now, the Tomahawk, which was used by Reese in this show, is the WK-RND Axe. It is a collaborative design between master bladesmith Daniel Winkler and skilled Sayok Kali martial arts trainer Raphael Kayanin. The handle design provides a standard grip position as well as a secondary close quarter grip that was developed to emulate the feel of a handgun grip. It is a really cool weapon.
Yeah, I've never seen a axe or anything like that.
Another great sequence, I think, was him scoping out and doing recon in any of the missions they have planned.
Yeah, the
it's
apartment
really cool.
complex
It's
one.
cool to see the planning going involved, but the apartment complex was awesome. Him breaking in and then taking out the investigator who's covering up everything, covering up all of his tracks, because he's starting to think that maybe I didn't kill those guys while I was getting the MRI, and the bodies were cleared up, and the investigator ended up being one of those hitmen trying to kill James Reese. And he finally gets reality struck in when he finds out that everything is real, everything is a conspiracy, right before he kills the guy. Then he takes him up. But that was a great sequence of practicing picking the lock and everything like that.
And that's an example where he didn't have to kill the guy. And I feel like so many modern interpretations of stories like this, they wouldn't have the lead character end up killing him, but James pulls the trigger and takes this guy's life. And I like that about this show. It doesn't cut corners. It doesn't try to show this guy as having a heart. Like, his heart's been torn out. His life has been destroyed, and now he's just unstoppable force. And I really like that. It was very Punisher-esque in that regard, where even though this guy, he wasn't like the villain of the story, and he's just a small piece of it, James still didn't even spare him. He could have spared him, but he chose not to.
I mean, if you're in that situation, the guy responsible who was helpful with the responsibility of the death of your wife and daughter, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people would pull that trigger as well. I think that's why people connected with it in a way. I think the city assassination of Jai Courtney's character was insane, because we were trying to figure out what exactly him and the pilot, they were planning with that job, and something they were going to explode in the middle of the streets, and they ended up.
And she wasn't sure about it. She didn't want to do it.
Blowing a door out the side of a van into that guy's Humvee, and the assassination of him was crazy. Never seen really anything like that. Big assassination attempt, or a big shootout in like a crowded city street since Heat, I think.
It was shocking. It was really shocking. It was so unexpected, but it was so intense and so well done, well choreographed and well shot. And then Constance Wu's character Katie was right there too, and she witnessed that James is like really this monster in a way to the people that he wants to eliminate. And I like how it was set up to make it seem like Jai Courtney's character was gonna be the villain of the show,
big bad.
Yeah, the big bad. But then taking him out by episode 5, I was like, oh, that I did not see that coming. And it was a really great twist for the show to keep it surprising and keeping it fresh.
I think episode 8, Transience, was one of the best episodes of the series. This is when he's on the run from HRT, which is the FBI, and it's basically First Blood as a TV series episode. It was so crazy epic. He's on the run in the wilderness. First of all, he's on the run from the cops on the road in a truck. Obviously, he's not going to get out of this alive. He's being chased by helicopter and cruisers. But then he uses his skills as a Navy SEAL and survivor, basically, to stay on the run and evade the police and HRT in the wilderness of this area. And it's an incredible episode, and climaxed with this crazy mudslide Mexican standoff that he creates to escape. And he even shows he is still has part of his humanity left, where he saves that woman's life, who's a former agent, I believe.
Yeah, I really like that episode too.
Former Ranger.
Yeah.
Come on, Army.
Army. Yeah, he kept saying, "Come on, Army." That episode was, because it was so different from any other episode, mostly in the wilderness. I really liked it, and it was so well done. And I like how there's this great team of Navy SEALs tracking him down, but even he seems to have a better grasp than most Navy SEALs of surviving of tactics, because he fooled them.
He's a legend.
A couple of times. I really like how even when he's up against a team of Navy SEALs, he's dominating them, and it showed how terrific of a soldier and warrior this guy was.
And then the finale is incredible. It's his vengeance. He gains his vengeance. This crazy compound is being guarded by military personnel or private military for the politician, the Secretary of Defense, right?
Secretary of State, I think.
State. And it's just him and Ben going in there on their own, and then HRT is also involved as well. So it's him basically against an army of private military, and he achieves his objective by not killing the secretary. She ends up killing herself, but making her admit her wrongs, and the story gets completed and finished, and all the evidence from the situation is gathered by the journalist Constance Wu's character to reveal the truth behind everything, because James Reese has been portrayed as a domestic terrorist, which he is in the film. I mean, the series. He's a domestic terrorist. He's killing people in the middle of the streets. That is terrorism. But you understand why he was doing it now, and now the world will understand what happened.
And then Extreme Ways plays. That's the song that plays at the end of Jason Bourne movies.
Yeah, Moby did the outro music.
And I really love the show. I can't wait for season 2. They're definitely going to greenlight it now. I think that the filmmakers and the cast and the writers just really pulled off something really cool, something that no other streaming service has. I can't think of a show in the last several years that's like this. I really enjoyed it because I love Jason Bourne movies. I love Tom Clancy stories. All these like espionage combined with military and tactics, and corrupt government trying to take down someone who's like a victim trying to do the right thing. I love these genres and these story beats, and so to have it all kind of infused into one thing was really fantastic, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Sign me up for season 2. I think Chris Pratt really did something special with this.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to this review of The Terminal List Season 1.
Take care, y'all.
This episode of Raiders of the Lost podcast was executive produced by our chosen one patrons, Luke Exelston, Tyler McFly, Darren Singleton, John A. Graz, Becca Keene, Cody Moen, Calvin Cam, and Lauren Smertz. Thank you for watching Raiders of the Lost podcast. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, notifications for sure. Listen to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, everywhere you can listen to podcasts, and be sure to check out this other content we have on our YouTube channel.